Welcome to the Perspective Podcast, where we embrace open dialogue from different perspectives about entrepreneurship, relationships, and education.
And this open dialogue is needed, especially today, as we live in a Twitter finger society where everyone seems to care more about getting their point across than they are about hearing the other person's perspective.
If you're ready to grow your business, your relationships, and your personal development, stick with us here at the Perspective Podcast, because sometimes in life, to get to the next level, you just need a different perspective.
If I look like what I've been through, I'd be roadkill. Tell me off of the pavement, I'm reeking from the...
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Perspective Podcast. I'm Mouzon. Got T here with me. Say what's up, T.
What's going on, family?
Hope everybody is doing well. We're back for another week. Excited as always to get back and share our perspective with you. We got another guest today. Right. Gonna also give you some more perspective. We always love having these in-depth conversations. All of you that have been listening and following and checking us out, right? You know that we just want to continue these thoughtful conversations and give you the, different perspectives from the people that are around us and in our circle. So we're starting to bring a few more people on. T, I'm gonna let you introduce this guest because you guys have history. You go way back, like 4 flats on a Cadillac.
Oh yeah. Well, let me start off by saying this is 20 plus years.
20 plus.
Right? Easy. I was trying to add the numbers up before the call. We're probably pushing 30 at this point almost.
We are pushing 30.
Dang.
I think I've known you since I was 11 and I turned 36 this year. So
there you go.
Yeah, we pushing 30.
We rock it. So without further ado, we got my boy Pat on. We call him Pat, we call him Dean. We go way back, as Chris kind of already alluded to. Man, we go back to playing video games, to trading basketball cards, hustling each other, or thinking we hustling each other on basketball cards. Somebody got the newest edition of the price book beforehand.
We started, the old school Beckett.
You know what I mean? All the way back from Long Beach, California, man, when we were dunking on each other on 8-foot rims. We thought we was doing something. So this is really a pleasure, for everybody that's a part of the podcast. I've been trying to get, in my head, kind of wrapping around how to get Pat on for the longest. He is a monster in the marketing space. And, me and Chris talk a lot about marketing, talk a lot about business. So we said, you know what, let's start bringing some of the experts on. And I said, hey, we got to get Pat on if we're going to talk about any type of marketing, digital marketing. He literally wrote the book or a book on marketing called Your Easy Guide to Winning at Digital Marketing. My man, without further ado, I want to introduce to our audience, Pat. Pat, if you don't mind, go ahead and give a quick introduction of yourself, anything you want us to know. And we're going to take this off because I know me and Chris got some questions for you.
Sure.
Man, I don't know if I can top that introduction, T. Yeah, so I'm Patrick Hodgson, go by Pat Dean, all of that. So, I've been in the marketing space for 13 years now, been on the in-house side, been on the agency side. Worked with Tiger Woods for a few years and was actually his first digital hire. So, kind of worked with him on his personal brand, the foundation, and his restaurant, the Woods Trooper out in Florida. And then I've worked in the esports space and actually going back to it relatively soon. So, yeah, just a lot of experience in different waves within marketing over the years that I've seen, from anywhere from Google, Facebook, to even Snapchat, the rise and fall, and then kind of resurgence of it. So yeah, I'm happy to be on with T and Chris, and I think it's going to be a fun episode for everybody. It's a lot going on.
It's a lot. Well, with that being said, right off the gate, let's give our listeners if you can, like a high level where you see the space of just digital marketing, because everybody's like hyped up on that, right? Because we're all in a digital world now, especially, with the pandemic. Like, where do you see this at for, let's call it a small to mid-sized business right now?
That's a great question, T. So my current position, I work for an agency called AdMax Local, where we focus on those small to medium-sized businesses and organizations that have a franchisee model. So we develop different tactics, usually on the paid media side, whether it's Google or Facebook, for these owners that really have a fair chance against the big players in the space. So I think right now, the biggest hurdle for everyone, especially small and medium businesses, is understanding what's happening in the data privacy space right now. So the iOS 14 update just happened through Apple, where it's kind of forced Facebook to eliminate a lot of their third-party tracking. Like you actually have to opt in now if you have an iOS phone. So I'm sure
I don't think
Apple
people
users,
real quick, Pat, I don't think people understand how big that is. And like, you know, like, because again, it's funny, we were just talking about this on another episode, how like certain things fly under the radar under mainstream media, right? Like, and those things that we choose to not look at or forcefully, right, don't look at. But this change in with iOS and our privacy and our data, like dive a little bit deeper into that for the listeners that might not even know what we're talking about right now. Give them like a understanding of what's happening.
Absolutely. I'll try to be as less technical as possible with it. So it essentially, before the iOS 14 updates, so look at it this way, any app, let's just take Facebook out of the way, any app that was on iOS within their system essentially had third-party tracking, which means that they had other websites, other apps tracking your movements, and they were all sharing this data to be able to target you better with advertisements. So I know a lot of you guys think that your devices may be on because you might get served an ad like in 2 seconds after talking about something or reading something. So a lot of that is because of that relationship and that data sharing between everyone. But now Apple had this enlightening period last year where they said, let's shut this down. Let's limit this third-party sharing. So now, if I know Facebook is still the headlight, but it's literally every single app that is on iOS has to now disclose this prompt where users on that app have to opt in to tracking. So we don't know how big it will be. I've seen a few surveys out there. Some say that 40% of the iOS users will opt into tracking. Some say as high as 60%. That's a wide variance.
That's a massive difference. Yeah, that's huge. That's 40% less customers that you're able to naturally track organically that from 5 years ago. Now you got to figure out a way to get in front of those folks.
You got to figure out a better way, and it's crazy. So now when you flip it to the level of your Facebook tracking, like they did a lot of third-party sharing and a lot of relationships, and you could do these really complex tactics within their advertising system to really, I mean, serve an ad to anybody you had.
I love Facebook marketing, right? Like it's the number one thing I got started with 4 or 5 years ago because of the targeting. Specifically, like I ran an ad. I was just talking to my wife about this. I ran an ad back in the day that had it was a pastor talking about financial freedom. I was able to target Black families that made less than $100,000 that followed pages around Christianity and Christ and the Bible. I literally segmented this niche market that video would target, and it got in front of them and the ad hit because I knew exactly who I was talking to. And when you scale that out, this is all businesses have been doing for the past 7-8 years, right, on us, is just saying like, oh, well, you like this and this and this. Well, let's create this ad that actually targets you. And literally this will cut this out for a lot of iOS users. You know what I mean? Like it's not, these companies are not going to have access to this data anymore. And that's a huge, huge deal. So
now what, Pat? Okay, so if I'm an iOS user, I have the option, right? Or if I'm a business and I know, let's call it 60% of my customers roughly, I don't know what those numbers are between iOS and Android, but let's say 60% of my customers now I can't get in front of, right?
Just by paid, right?
Just by paid. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's now, if I'm a small business, right? I'm not usually ahead of the game. I'm usually kind of trailing behind or trying to fight through the weeds. What do I do now?
I'm about to beat a dead horse that I've been saying for 10 years. And a lot of people have different opinions on this, but I've always recommended small businesses and medium-sized businesses to really continue to build their email marketing list. And the reason why that's essential is because that's your data. Like, you own that data. And if you're being consistent with that tactic and sending out newsletters at the right time with the right message to the right people, and you're continuing to build that profile on that customer or that prospect, like, you're able to do some really good things with that customer and build a nice relationship. So you have that data that you're having. And then on the paid media side, the reason why that's important now is because you can upload the email list and talk directly to them on Facebook, or you can do what they call a lookalike audience, where they'll look for people with similar traits as those. So that, to me, is like the most important thing that not only small business, but all businesses should be doing right now. It's like just really building that email list. And if you've been doing it, but inconsistent and kind of have an outdated list, like, it's okay to start from scratch. You can send out the list and have people re-opt in and those things.
I'll go.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because it's 1,000% true. I'm glad you've been telling people that, Pat, for some time, because people don't understand that we're in the data collection business. Like, if you're in business, like, you're in the data collection business. It's about gathering data, and all of these social platforms that we use, they own the data.
They own it.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, these platforms are convenient. They were built on the internet so that we could actually, promote business and do all these things. But when you really get down to what businesses should be doing, is you should be collecting data. And so the data that you collect, like you said, in the form of an email list is always great. I'm curious to hear your take on this one. The SMS, right? The text message side now is getting so much bigger. If you take a look at really what local businesses or small businesses could be doing, just getting a phone number, which gets you into a text community, which then gets your data. This is what Chipotle and all, right? Like, when they get you in, it's not just by your email anymore. It's just like, oh, sign up for this. Here, text this to this. And then all of a sudden they got you there. It's just about data. And I don't think people understand that, but I'm curious to hear your take on, like, where that side's going, the text message side.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because SMS is basically another layer of email. It's just more, it's better for the younger generation. You think you're Gen Z to opt in that. It's a sophisticated way to do that. And I think that a lot of businesses, I mean, SMS has been out for a bit, but there's so many businesses that aren't even exploring it yet at all. And I think they're missing out on an opportunity, especially the businesses that have an older demographic and have boomers and are thirsting for younger audiences. Like, this is a great way to get in front of them. And it works pretty much the same way as email. Like, you have the same messaging system. You have essentially a subject line that you'll see when your text comes up there, depending on which type of phone the receiver has. So I think that with SMS, that's I group that into email when I'm, like, saying list collecting. So I would advise that. And one of the there's so many good platforms right now too that are giving discounts just because there's not a lot of people on there. So don't be afraid to at least test it out. You'll have, like, at least a 3-month trial in some of the platforms out there. And then as you build the list up, then they'll start charging, because they want to sell that service. So I think people should explore it right now.
Well, let me ask this then. I know we talk about text, right? And that might be new for some, but it's not really new, right? We've been texting for years.
Yeah.
And, I've been texting since we have to pay for the text, right? Like, each text, like, stop texting me back, man. You don't have to say thanks. Like, it costs you 40 cents, right? But now what about, like, Google ads? Like, is that still a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Give me some more about that. Tell me more.
As much as I'm a specialist on, like, Facebook ads and love Facebook ads because of what Chris said, like, prior to iOS, this robust targeting was like some of the best you can do if you know what you're doing inside the platform. Google ads, right? If I had to advise anyone, that's the first thing you should be doing on basically this paid media checklist. So the reason I say that is because Google ads has their traffic is higher intent. And what I mean by that is that when you search in Google, you're effectively either doing research to buy something, or you are ready to buy now. You just need to know who has the best product or the right price for you. So it's a really high quality, high intent community of traffic there. that the ads would be serving. Versus Facebook is more what I call a discovery / interruption or brand awareness, because the consumers are on Facebook to connect with friends and family, to flex.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
For those group of people. And so when you get an ad on your newsfeed there, you might be like, oh, cool, I didn't know this existed, or this type of product was available for this price. So there's the brand awareness piece. So after that, you might save the message and review it later on, but you're not quite ready to buy. But there's the thing is, right, like these two work good together if you're doing both, because what happens too in a Facebook ad is that I'm either going to go to your Facebook page, I'm going to go directly to your website, or I'm going to do a Google search. And if I'm doing a Google search, then boom, the Google ad's going to pop up too. So it's a great kind of like cycle to do. But if you had to choose one to start, especially since we're talking about small and medium businesses, Google ads would be the most effective, because you're getting a higher quality traffic.
Well, what about cost wise, right? Like, Google ads have been out for a while. It's like, it's not anything new. And it sounds like the theme that I'm hearing is what used to work is kind of cycling kind of back around again to being effective. Because at one point I heard in the marketing community, stay away from Google, focus on Facebook, go to Instagram. Like there's the shiny new object. But it sounds like the guerrilla, dirty things that were like foundational are like kind of back as the forefront, and people are missing out.
It's funny you say that, T. I know, like there's a large chunk of people that thought it was like left for dead or was ineffective, but it's still kind of always been the foundational pieces. Like the real marketers, like they know the value of email list and Google. I won't say like real marketers. Let me rephrase. Let me say the experienced marketers. There you go. Yeah. That those are the foundational pieces still, and they're like so important, especially when you have such a small budget. Like those email marketing is so cheap to do, whether it's MailChimp, SendFox, like there's so many out there that is so affordable now. And then same thing with Google Ads, price, right? So price on any of the paid media platforms, you effectively control your price. That's the beauty of digital marketing advertisement, is that you're not going out there and spending thousands of dollars on a billboard or a TV spot. Like you actually have a budget that you can say, no, I don't want to spend more than $10 or $20 a day. And if you're putting in the right targeting options, then it still ends up being effective. And then if you're seeing those ROI results, then you can scale and put more budget in.
Yeah. And would you group YouTube ads into that kind of that Google, or is that totally separate?
Yeah.
No, it's funny. It's so Google owns YouTube, and it's a part of the Google Ads interface. So in order to run YouTube ads, like you can run them through Google Ads. It's really easy and slick interface how they do it. So I would consider that I would consider it as a segment of Google Ads, because there's Google Ads is like so display. So just to clarify to the listeners, when I say Google Ads, I'm thinking like search specific, because YouTube ads can get expensive. And so can what they call display ads. So the display ads are like the banners that you'll see across the web about a certain product. So those two can be a really expensive. I would advise just to run search ads when you have a smaller budget.
I'm gonna jump in real quick, because as you guys are talking, my brain's going a few different places as always, right, T?
Yeah.
My brain's going a few different places. And so one, Pat, I'm curious to hear kind of your experience with what small and medium businesses are like seeing right now, or like what their challenge is in understanding this. Because as I'm listening, working with a bunch of small business owners, right, just knowing a bunch of just people that are getting their businesses going, this conversation is they aren't attracted to, right? Like most people don't understand how important marketing in general is for their business, right? And just being able to craft your message, tell your story, put it on the right platforms, get it in front of your avatar, yada, yada, right? Like people just don't even understand how important this conversation is. And then that being said, the other place my brain was going, and you figure out how you want to answer this, I'm just throwing it out. The other place is, when I think of marketing as a I call myself a small business owner, right? Like when I think of marketing, I just think of where can I get the best bang for my buck?
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think about what's dead, what's not. But like for me, I'll just jump in and say, I don't use Google ads because it's intent based.
Mm-hmm.
In a financial, this is how I've done it for my own business, right? This is how I think of it. For me, I sell financial service products, annuities, insurance, wills, trusts, yada, yada. The intent of somebody typing in Google, I want life insurance, I want disability insurance, for me to get to the top of that result, not going to be the best bang for my buck, right? Because I'm
in organic, it wouldn't.
In organic, it wouldn't, but in paid, it wouldn't either, in my estimation, because I'm competing with the companies that do that. State Farm, right? Nationwide, they're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into their Google ads to get those top results. So from a paid side, intent-based, I've never even gone down that path because I've only wanted to build brand because that's my competitive advantage. So then I've always thought, okay, well, stay away from that side because I'm not going to win the intent side. But what I will win is me, right? And you get to know me, the brand side. So I've always gone that path. Is that a strategy? Am I thinking about that the right way? And I know I've asked like 3 different questions. Like I said,
it's fine. This is how it works, right? This is what a small business owner is thinking about.
Exactly. But that's how I think of it.
It's great, right? So money is only a small segment of how the auction works, right? So if you have, I'm trying to keep it simple. So there's basically Google has like a ranking system that will also look at your conversion rate and how relevant your ad is to the website or landing page you send them to. So money is like, it's important, but it's like just one of like 3 major variables that they look at. So
what percentage, Pat? I'm sorry. If you had a pie and you had to put money on 100% pie, what would that be, you think?
Man, I say it's 50-50, honestly, because you have people that will have like a large budget and with Google, right, and paying for a specific keyword or query, but someone with a lower budget could have like a higher ad rank. That's basically what the conversion rates and click-through rates and all those calculations do. They give you like an ad rank. So you can have someone that's scoring high on that part and has a higher optimization score within Google's eyes. So that person could potentially even like their ad could show above the person that has more money. Potentially,
it has Potentially, it has to be like a really good ad, right? Like you have to hit the home run with that ad.
Yeah, not even the home run. It's really if you would have to hire like the right person, like that knows what they're doing,
right?
And that could potentially help you play against like those bigger companies out there that have the budget. And also the cool thing about Google, right? Like you don't have to bid on the same keywords as the major advertisers too. They have the keyword planner within there and then they also have Google Trends. So if you're looking at any new trends within Google Trends or a certain keyword volume for something that the other advertisers aren't bidding on, like you can bid on that and not necessarily compete with it, and still have your brand awareness strategy that you're doing too, Chris.
Yeah.
So that's the route I would do, because the popular keywords, you're 100% right. Like even with the way Google works, you're like probably gonna lose out on that. But if you're finding other keywords that could be relevant, it'll be significantly lower traffic. But if those big players aren't bidding on that, like that's where I would put the money in Google.
So it sounds like just like typically in business, when you're trying to disrupt and you're the small guy, you got to eat what's the leftovers, and you can catch the trend and run with it and grow into that spot, right?
Yep, and it's crazy. So now my mind is spinning, right? So your space is unique, man, because I think like for most service industries, like you could really compete. But I understand what you said on that one. That's a budget.
I've had to have a whole different strategy. Because once you get into the space, like I said, I appreciate this conversation because I've been learning marketing, being like self-taught, basically watching Gary V, right? Like studying like little things here and there. And the industry that I'm in is just so like, you have to really nail like the creative, you have to nail every part of like the story and how you really go about it. And it was a lot for me to try to figure out. So I just started running with building personal brand. I was like, all right, I'm just going to build personal brand. Just do that forever. Yeah.
That's smart. The other thing, right? So if Google seems pretty expensive, right? It's another route you can go. You can go to it was Bing ads before, but Microsoft, after they purchased it, rebranded it as Microsoft ads. So this is a cool thing, right? A lot of people just kind of think of Bing as like second fiddle, not really a major search engine, but it has still a pretty sizable market share. And there's different agreements that Microsoft will do with certain devices or certain organizations. Like they might do a deal with Samsung that's like a year or 2 years, and that they say this has to be the default search engine on the device. Or you buy a certain computer or tablet, like this has to be the default search engine on the device. So that's why their market share is really well. And then the other thing to consider is that a lot of those big boys, I'd say not a lot, but I'd say half of them don't have a Bing, or I should say Microsoft ad strategy. So it gives the small business owner and the medium-sized business owners even an opportunity to go the Bing route, which essentially works very similar to Google. Yeah. And you'll pay for keywords that are much less expensive, and there'll be less competition than you would in Google Ads too. So that's something to definitely explore. The other thing, the con to it though is like you're not going to have like quite the traffic as Google, but it's still really effective. And what's great about financial or life insurance industry is that the demographics on Microsoft Ads /Bing are like older too. So like if you're in those type of industries, like that's a creative way to not put all your eggs in a basket with Google.
Yeah.
Well, let's pause for a second, right? We like to do this when our guests drop this kind of knowledge, right? So let me hear it, make sure I heard it right. You can get out of the red ocean if you read the book and go into the blue, right? And if you're small, large audience is relative to you, right? Exactly. Like, I mean, if you're a small business and Google can get you 1,000, but you really only can really handle 50, but they're giving you 100 on the other side, you can double, your volume coming in. So again, you can be creative. This is why as a business owner, it is so important you understand your marketing or go get very smart people like Pat and that can help out, because these are the opportunities. Like you said, Pat, some people look at marketing as, all right, I got to do it. So let me get a website. Let me get a Facebook page. It's like, I know I'm going to lose this money. Like this money, like somebody says I got to spend 5 to 7% of my budget on this. So here you go, agency, whatever, I hope, right? You can send me some leads back or money back. But it does not have to be that. It can actually be a system that is what's the word I'm looking for? That you can recall, not recall. What's the word? What's the word? Not retain. Dang, it just went out my head. Like you can determine what's going to happen, right? Like you can predict. It's somewhat predictable, right? Like if you get really good at it, you can start to predict what can start coming back in. And people don't think that for marketing. They think it's just money in the air and it just happens. So, I mean, well, let me ask you, Pat, I see you shaking your head. Can you get your marketing down to where it's predictable income or leads coming in?
Absolutely. And this is, man, it's funny you said it. So I'm thinking about a client that I work with in the home improvement space right now. They operate on a franchisee model, has like 6 different brands within different home improvement spaces. And it's weird, right? They have franchisees in different parts of the regions, but because we have built up data over time, we know, 8 out of 10 times which months are going to be down. So when we need to pull back money, and we know the months that are going to be peak season for them. So we know summer months across the board is peak season for them. So we can like run, we call them opportunity reports, where we look at like the Google impression share data to see how many impressions are available for different searches and recommend how much money for them to spend on a specific product. So the analytics side is important. A lot of people miss this. you'd be surprised even the Fortune like 500 companies that miss this aspect. There's a lot. So if you have the reporting pieces down and they're tracked right, and you kind of look at that after a year of just being consistent, like you're able to really predict how performance could be, especially that seasonality aspect with ads, because all of these ad platforms have certain seasonalities where advertisers are more aggressive. You usually see it in a general sense around the holiday season in Q4, where the prices spike up because of competition. And then Q1, there's usually like a dip for most folks. Usually the first month of each quarter is also a dip too because of budget constraints. So yeah, if you really like analyzing the data that's like Google Ads is giving you or Facebook ads, and you're recording that in a way that's accessible and easily understand to your business partners or any other stakeholders within your business, like it can be predictable.
So
I love it.
Real
Go
quick,
ahead, Chris.
yeah, I was gonna say, man, just I want to move gears because there's an important thing I want us to get to, because we've talked about esports on the platform before, and I know that you're moving towards that direction, man. So first off, congrats on like the new role. If you know,
appreciate it.
But talk about how your marketing's got to be different in this industry where it's ginormous, yet no one knows about it, right? Right? Like it's like this behemoth of a monster, however many billion, if not trillion-dollar industry already, and your average person has no idea.
They may have heard about it because a lot of kids play video games.
But that's about it. Like, they don't know like again, we've talked about it on the platform. I constantly am talking to parents, like, are your kids good? Like you might hate that they're in the room all day. Like you might hate that they're on the screen, but like, have you looked at them? Are they good? Because if they're good, you could have the next Michael Jordan in your like in your room right now, and you're just telling them get off the game because you want them to go get a job. It's like, no, you're missing out. So like, how is this marketing going to have to be different to reach this new demographic of people?
Man, Chris, that is an excellent question. So it's different because you have two audiences. You have the people that are actually playing the video games and follow the different esports leagues. So the two most popular ones are League of Legends, that league, and then the second one is the Overwatch League. So it's crazy because in esports, like the biggest organizations have multiple different teams that are competing in different leagues, and these games are all different. So it's like, okay, how do I segment the audience? Like, I know they're all young, like for the actual players and the people that are interested in the content, I know most of them are young. Like, how do I segment that down, like per game though? That's like how granular you have to get, because the genres are different. So that's the way to go about it, but it's challenging. No one's been able to solve it yet. That's the fun part about it. And then the second targeting option, right, is the parents. They don't know what esports is. Like, they don't know that the top esports athletes are making $3-4 million a year at 18, 19, 20 years old. Like that's a game changer for your family. It's like when T and I were on the phone yesterday, it's literally like the stories we hear in the NFL, the NBA, where you have someone that came straight out of high school when they allowed the rules, or like now it's one and done, that like they put in that work, they're good in their craft, and then boom, like you just changed your family's fortune forever. If you spend the money right. I mean, it's not just the current family, it's the generation after that, the generation of wealth.
All from playing video games.
And now you can do it playing video games. These guys are out there running, dunking, hitting each other. And now you can do it sit right down the sticks.
Just on the sticks with your thumbs. That's it.
It's crazy, right? So you got the Generation Z audience that you got to target. You got the parents. I really actually think the parents, this is my personal opinion, I think the parents is the most important ones to target right now. To really explain why video games is like, let's call it a core sports, like why it's important as a core sport was like to our youth, like we have Pop Warner, right? So like we have to explain why like video games is important. And there's so many different organizations now that are doing different type of academies and training camps for folks. UC Irvine has like a training camp too that they do.
Oh, wow.
They're really heavy in the esports space. They've been pushing it for years before like even got into the world.
I saw SC had one too, right?
Yeah.
Like I saw SC had a program for
mm-hmm.
esports.
So literally, I say like a decade from now, right? Like when we all got a little bit gray going, you're gonna see esports in high schools. You're gonna see it in colleges. Like you're already seeing it in both, but I mean, like on a wider scale, you're like it'd be crazy like for a high school or college not to have an esports team in different games. So it's the education aspect and it's like really understanding like how the industry evolved too. So I think that it's a lot of education that has to happen to the parents right now.
And that's honestly, that's the marketing strategy, right? Like the marketing strategy is like, let's just educate. Like we got to educate everybody on like how big this is. And, I'm obviously, and I'm not sure what's your role going to be specifically, Pat. I don't know if you can say that.
Yeah, I can say the role. I won't say the organization. So yeah, I'll be a marketing director for let's say one of the biggest 3 esports organizations out there, and it's crazy because like I'm gonna have to work with my new teammates on these different types of challenges. It's a lot that like it's basically just going to be an education strategy to me.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it, man, because in such a big industry, yet again, the people that understand it aren't even the decision makers in their household.
In their household, yeah.
Right. That's always the tough part. I'm always talking, like I said, always talking to entrepreneurs and people. And I say this to people that write children's books a lot of times too, is like, you understand that like the child doesn't pick that book, right?
No,
like
the
parent picks the book for the child. Even though you wrote it for children, your market that you're marketing to is actually not the children.
Exactly.
It's the parent, right? And so understanding these types of things in this industry, I think it's important. Kids can't speak up yet and kind of say how big this is or how important it is. They're seeing it. It's really about crafting the mindset of the parent to be like, okay, like I will allow you to play this game for 6 hours.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. So Pat, like that sounds pretty challenging, right? Especially when you have parents that have there's already a negative bias, right? It feels like my wife, right?
Exactly.
like there's this argument that I finally won that this summer they're going into an esports camp, right? Yeah. Like we have one locally near us, and she's like I'd rather them go play basketball like you did. I'm like, they don't want to play basketball. Like I would love it, but they don't
it's
like
a different
it.
generation, man.
Yeah, they don't want to play basketball. So instead of fighting the current, have them out there sitting on the bench somewhere because they don't want to play, right? Let's go put them in the game, right? Yeah. So how do you speak to people like my wife to say this is something that you should consider, if nothing else?
Yeah, I think the camps right now are going to be important. The organizations that are implementing the camps right now have a good opportunity to get in front of the parents right now to kind of ease their concerns. And the ones that are doing it right are speaking directly to the parents like, hey, like, we're not just focusing on video games at this camp. We're trying to teach them life skills too, just like you would at any other camp, whether it's a core sports or just a regular camp, just to interact with kids. So when you think about it, right, it's the video games is the thing that gets the kids excited, but kind of like when we were young, right, we're not thinking about the other skill levels that are developing at the camp. So I think the organizations that can talk to the other skill levels developing are going to really connect with those parents that have concerns about their child's, having their eyes on the TV screen and
absolutely. I think that's a great point, Pat. Like, I think especially in these camps and things, if we're going to put this in front of them more, it's about learning teamwork, learning leadership skills, right? Learning how to communicate. There's actually a lot of like values that can be taken from esports, right? Like, most kids are just popping off at the mouth or something, right? Like just on their headset. But like, there's also leadership skills that are created when you're the leader of the team, when you have to direct people, right? How to communicate to them to get somebody to move, to understand. That's different, right? Like those are real skills that they can learn.
And the diversity and inclusion, right? Because you got to think about like, okay, in sports, right? Usually you have more white and Latino descent players in baseball now. In basketball, football, predominantly Black, right?
Yeah.
But in esports, right, it's so inclusive with
everything.
everybody. Like it hits every community, and then it's very prominent in the LGBTQ plus community too, right? So you have kids now that could potentially have like a safe space too, right there, that are dealing like with like coming out or how to get friends or to better understand them. So I look at it at that diversity inclusion part is important too, because these camps are not like most of the camps, I should say, are not like unreasonably priced, right? They're affordable to your upper middle class family to all the way down to a family that is struggling right now. So I think from a child's perspective, and for the parents with the right mindset, you're getting your kids really an opportunity to connect with folks on all different like socioeconomic levels too, which will help with their life skills later on down the road. I think
that was one of the questions, and I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask is like, where do we, from the African American Black community, right, whatever term we want to use, like, how do we feel like in that space? Because when I look at the events, I don't see a lot of us there.
It's not a lot of us in there. It's crazy, right? Because we know that a lot of African Americans play video games. We did.
Yeah, with Madden, right? I mean, think about it, boy. You get 21 downs, give up them sticks, bro. Like, you down.
I can answer this question, Pat. I'm gonna let you answer, but I have a thesis on this too, right?
Man, Chris.
Like,
what you got, Chris?
Like at the end of the day, like, Black people, we're still behind. The message that we're still sending our children is go to school, get good grades, get a job. Like, it's still the same message. We're behind in thinking because the parents aren't looking at the future. They're looking at their own past, their own mistakes, things. The only way that we can help the next generation is if we're having these progressive, offensive, not defensive conversations about what life could be, what our child's life could be, not what we thought we should have done. That's where a lot of people parent out of, right? They parent out of like, that's how the previous generation got us.
If I had done this, I would have been better.
Go to college. You're going to college because your life is going to be way better than mine. And then all of a sudden, we all got to go to college. And then, right, like there's still this turn of parents that are like, well, you might not have to do this, but now go into the trades or go into this. Like we're so forceful for like what we think we're setting them up for because we're not paying attention to this stuff. We're not paying attention to like,
there's other options.
World has changed. So like the reason we're behind is because we're still behind in our thinking. We're still behind in our messaging. Like we're not talking to our generations about VR, AR, coding, like the stuff that's up ahead that like we might not even want to pay attention to, but like absolutely it's going to be important for them. And that's why we're behind. Like that's my thesis on that.
I think that's part of it. I think it's part of it. And the other part is representation, right? So I think esports is getting better at this every year in representation too. So it's funny. So Call of Duty League came out a year or 2 years ago. And so what's funny, right, is like two of the biggest people that were responsible for that were people of color. Daniel Cherry, we call him DC. He's now with DC Comics / Warner Media Group now, but he was a big part of the Call of Duty team, and he's an African American man. It's very successful. And then I'm blanking out on her last name, but first name's Joanna. No, this is a Black woman. That's like ahead of that. And she just got promoted to general manager for Call of Duty League.
Oh, so, wow.
I mean, that's huge. And I think to your point, Chris, though, I think that if parents could be a little bit more open-minded or a little bit more like challenge themselves to follow the trends, and they see those spaces like them in these new industries that didn't exist 10, 20 years ago, that's going to be a huge help with getting the younger generation these camps and that educational aspect of esports and how esports can impact not just them right now, but the entire family later on.
That's so good. That's so good, man. And I think that's a good point to just realize, like you said, open mindset, right? The whole point of the podcast, perspective, right? But then also when we are opening our mind, do we at least see ourselves? Right. And that's, and like, I know people say, oh, you shouldn't think like that, but let's just call a spade a spade. Like, we want to see other people that look like us too doing it, right? Like, we want to see the example, right? At the end of the day. And that's why it's so important that we want to have these type of conversations, because we're all in our own prospective fields doing our things, right? And it's important to say, and us to also communicate it, right? Like, one of the things that, like, my new boss, CEO, he was talking about was he asked, African-American friend in his his grad school program, like, what can I do as a white guy? Like, what can I do to help? Like for real, like, no BS. Like, I'm literally asking a question. And, the guy was like, hey, you need to, put your money where your mouth is, right? Yep. You need to fund some things. And then I said, yeah. And I said, but also people got to be aware of it. He was like, no, not just fund it, but I need to be a part of bridging the gap as well, and making sure people can see people like you, right? Like, if I'm going to fund it, I don't want to be the face of it. You guys should be the face of it. And I want to support it in whatever capacity that is, right? Some people feel like it's through charity. Some people feel like it's through jobs. That's my boss. Like, we want more people that look like you. Hence why I'm there, right? Not only reason why I'm there, right? But it's one of those things where it's a representation thing, and we do need to see each other. And that is extremely important. And Pat, like, my kids play Call of Duty, and I've never heard of the two people you just talked about.
Yeah.
Right? Chris, have you heard of the two folks?
I don't know.
Daniel Cherry, a bad man. Yeah, he was a big part of it. And Joanna, I just pulled up her last name. It's Faries, Faries.
Okay.
Because she was already like the head of the league, but like now she's general manager. She just got promoted to that like recently.
What's their role? Like, is it should we think of general manager very similar to how we think of,
like president almost? Like
a general manager of the Bulls, right? Like
that's a great question, because it's always different in different organizations. Like GM of the league, man. I mean, I would look at it like that in this context for the Call of Duty league. Like,
but it's the league, so it's not a team, like, so it's more like Adam
league.
Silver.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the entire league. So she's running like the whole show and responsible really for all the teams involved in the league and all those players within those teams. Like,
she looks like us.
But like, what's like, I'm just curious to go down that role, like, of like skill sets. Like, what's needed? Like, is it she's communicating with the heads of the teams to bring them together? Like, is she dealing with marketing? Is it all of it?
All of it, like all the operation. And what's funny about her, right? I met her, I want to say 2 years ago. I actually was interviewing for a role there years ago when they first were launching the Call of Duty League. And she, what's amazing about her is that she came from the NFL. So you're getting people that are coming from traditional sports or forms of entertainment that are getting into this league, because when you think about esports, right, it's a combination of entertainment, it's a combination of sports. And so I think that now that you're getting people like that into the community, like, you're going to see the messaging evolve too, and be able to connect with parents. Again, it goes back to the education part.
Yeah.
So that's the exciting thing. But yeah, it's to get a GM job, I mean, in an esports organization, the way I would look at it is just like, it's still, at the end of the day, crafting either, like I said, a business skills or marketing skills or finance skills to get these like roles in it. It's the same thing the same ladder you would take, if you want like that career path. But yeah, it's just back to your point though, Chris. Like, it's how do we get, and not even ahead of it, like, how do we get like in on that trend?
Yeah,
like, you just gotta get in it, right? Like, and that's the thing. And I think representation is important, but like, we just got to figure out a way, like, to say like, okay, my skills match up, I can go into this arena.
Yeah, these skills can translate.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like these skills translate here, not just 1, 2, 3, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's, Chris, I think that's what you like. A lot of what I hear is, it's like we're fixed minded, right? Like, okay, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be a this, and because our community is lagging behind even in those things, right? And so, but there's like 7 or 8 different other avenues, and I know that's just a random number, arbitrary number, but there's so much more out there. But look, like we're doing it now, guys. Like this is it, right? This is the conversation. As people are hearing it, these are the things that we need to bring up, because these are the foundational things. As people have kids or starting to have kids, and they're like, you know what? Let me think about that. These are some people my age that's talking about it. Like, I'm putting my kids in esports camps this summer. Right? Like whether my wife wants to or not, they going right now. Right? Like they're going to East because that's something that I see. And they may get there and be like, you know what, Dad, this ain't it. Okay.
And here's the other side.
That's
like,
fine.
You gotta try it.
You gotta try it. Just like putting them into sports. Like I may put my daughter into soccer and she may suck. She may not like it. She just might not be good. And I'll quickly be like, all right, this probably isn't for you.
It's not it.
But it's okay. Like there's no worry. There's no, nothing wrong with trying that thing.
Yeah.
We just have to be progressive in what we're choosing to try. So like esports, like you may go and like one of your boys might stand out, right? One of them might be like, this is it. And he's locked in and there and just doing it. And the other two might be like, I don't know. Like,
go play some chess or something over there.
And you'll recognize that as a parent, and you might have steered one into their lane, and then the other ones go away to a different lane. But we just have to be open to that. We have to be open to that.
Well, I think that leads back to the bigger conversation. We're talking about marketing in esports, and we've kind of dove into esports a little bit, which is fantastic. But what's the common theme here? You got to be willing to change. You got to be willing to open your mind.
Mindset.
Yeah, there's more opportunities. Like, you don't have to think, oh, my business can't grow because I can't get customers in. No, there's other ways. Like, get off Google, go to Microsoft Ads, change it up, go to Facebook. We haven't even gotten into, you talked about the rise and fall and rise again of Snapchat and Instagram. Like, there's so many things. So I guess from a business owner perspective, and I've been here as well, like with my very small boutique consulting firm, right? Mm-hmm. It's, where do you start, Pat? Like, if from a marketing perspective, like, all right, I got a lot of information, a lot of people talking about a lot of stuff. Like you said, start with Google Ads, but from an education standpoint, where can people start to pick up these type of pieces?
This is great. That's a great question. So the beauty of it, right? Like most of it is free or little to no cost. So what's Google specifically, right? They have Google Skill Shop. If you just Google Skill Shop, like they have pretty much everything you need to know in these small video chunks, usually no more than 10 minutes. They're usually average anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes, but the biggest ones might be 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. Like all of those things are free and it's within a platform. So again, it's mindset, right? Like you go through that and you just go through the courses. You can take self-assessments there, and then you can actually take a test with Google to get the certification, which a lot of jobs look for. Same thing with Facebook. They have an education series that they always update called Facebook Blueprint. Free. And pretty much everything you need to know to run ads on any of these platforms is within there. The challenge is that, okay, you're going to say, I don't have time to do that. Well, you don't want to make money then. You got to make time for that. And basically me, like that's how I like really built my skill set. Like I started, my bachelor's degree is in journalism. And what happened with my first job out of college when I graduated is I got promoted to a business analyst role. I didn't know like anything about that stuff. And what ended up happening is I just started taking classes at UCLA Extension just to get my mind around like business and marketing. I fell in love with marketing, but at the time, and even when I did my MBA program, they didn't teach digital marketing. So I was just like taking Google skill shots. Facebook Blueprint wasn't around then, but I would just take like online courses that had those things and then go back to it and like do like $5, that's something that wouldn't hurt me. So I can like experiment and also apply what I was learning to things. And it's those little things like that you can do. Another great resource that costs, but it's not that much money, is Udemy. Like Udemy has practically videos on anything.
Everything, yeah.
Don't buy those $60 ones or the ones that be $120. They always come down to like $10 and $11 and $12. So like I just like when they're like $10, $11, $12, I just go in and buy like 4 or 5 things, even if I'm not gonna do it at that time. So that would be my recommendation. Like it pretty much like the way it is now, it's so easy to pick up a new skill, especially in an emerging an emerging industry right now. Like there's really no excuse not to learn.
All right, so hold up, pause. Again, nugget time, right? Let's make sure we crystallize this. You went to school for journalism. What was at that point? What did you want to do when you went and got the undergraduate for journalism? What was your thought?
I wanted to be on ESPN. Like Stuart Scott was like, I wanted to be Stuart Scott. Yeah. And it's crazy. It's man, life is weird sometimes. So when I graduated in 2007, and when I graduated, Great Recession was hitting. So people were like just lucky to get jobs. I ended up getting this like small job like at a PR firm, and it was very like just stuff like my skill set was above, but I did it. And then when I got that role, it kind of like changed my life. And even then, right, like it goes back to mindset. In my mind, right, I was in the old mindset. I want to be in this job for 30 years, this type of thing, because that's the old generation. That's what you were told,
right? Yeah.
So the only job I ever been like let go of ever, knock on wood, nothing else around, but was this, and it was let's just say it wasn't warranted. I'll say that, but you know, it worked out. And that was really like the springboard, because I was doing the MBA actually when I was working there too. So like when I got that, I'm getting the business skills at B school, and then I'm getting like the actual digital marketing things, just self-teaching. So all of that built. And then when I was let go, they called it a layoff. It's kind of illegal, but when that happened, I ended up getting a job with American Golf, and they were really big into Google ads and Facebook ads. So everything I learned, I got to apply with their money that they were putting behind it. So that really, honestly, like just springboarded me, and just, you know, every year it just added layers and layers to it. So
think about that, y'all. Like, so going to school to journalism, trying to get on ESPN, right? Calling the place for LeBron, Duncan, and everything, you know, everything else, right? You could be up there making your booyahs, and you thinking about this. But then it shifts, right? The economy, right? We graduated around the same time, right? We all graduated into a recession, right? Like we're the recession kids, right? Graduates. And then it shifts from, you know what? I got a little taste of this and I like it. But then you utilize the internet, free and minimum cost, to teach yourself a skill. Fast forward 10 years later, and you're about to be running the marketing department for one of the largest esports organizations on the planet. Like, you know what I mean?
It's
like
ridiculous. Again, back to the point of like how we're not forward thinking. This is why Google and all these platforms will overtake universities, right? Because the information that you're getting, the skills that you're getting, they are going to give that to people for free or very, very low cost. Be able to get certifications. I think we posted this on our TikTok that like they're already doing.
It's $50 a month.
Right. Yeah.
Like Ebonix threw half of it. And like I was like, just do it. Like,
but I think if I remember correctly, you can enroll at 16 years old.
Yeah.
So imagine you're 16 in high school. You enroll and do this as your extracurricular, whatever. And 3 years later, you're 19 in the position of being one of the marketing manager, one of the top marketing people, because you took some online courses. Think of how this changes all of what we know of education, all of what we understand about how quickly we can become successful, right? Like I've talked about this a bunch. 100 years ago, kids were going to work at 12. They're like, all right, forget the school thing. At 12, they're like, I'm going to go work. Like, that's the way it ran. And now we've babied our country. So like, it's okay to be at home when you're 36. Like, that's okay for some people. And like, but now we're going to go back to this other time of like, no, you're 16, learn these skills and get out there and go be amazing with this information that you have.
Yeah,
it's like, all there.
Changes
it's
the game.
all right there. Like, and not think about that. 16 plus 10 years is 26.
Oh man, you said.
Think about that. At 26, you probably be in the 6-figure range minimum. Right? Like
minimum. We're talking about like a skill that is going to be needed more than ever in 10 years.
That the current market, man, there's so many marketing jobs right now that are available, but they can't fill them because people don't have the skill set. And it's like, honestly, right? Like I appreciate my NBA experience, but if I had to do it over, like,
Tell them, Pat.
I got the skills already, like that they didn't even teach me in B school.
Tell them.
Hey, Pat, this is like season 1, episode 20 for me, right? Like went and got my MBA in business. Right. And I'm like, all the stuff that I studied, people, leadership, all that, I already had it.
You already had it, yeah.
It was already there. I was already using it. Like I just spent X amount of money for what I already had.
You pay for your network.
Yes, that's it.
And me, on the other hand, I think of it entrepreneurially, right? No B school, no higher education, go grind, go shake hands, go kiss babies, go to networking events, go build your network. Right, like that's just it, and that was the debate we would always have. Yeah, it's like which side, right? And I'm like, I think this is the way, and I think this is the way people are going. I think just by this conversation in general, seeing how much opportunity is really ahead.
Yeah,
you really just think of opportunity.
You know, and you said something really important, Chris. Like, so out of my B school network, and then you have a group of friends that I went to Long Beach State with, right? So there's it's crazy, right? There's an organization that was started directly for African American people that we're supposed to share ideas. And one thing that I was noticing, and this, I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game. So there's no shade on them on this. But like, I was noticing that the same people were getting promoted on the platform, like their businesses, or like the people that were doing deals is the same ones, right? So I just like, I stepped back and I stopped going to it and stuff, because like, as we get older, right, we only have so much time that we can spend on things, and we got to make sure that it's bringing us the right ROI. Mm-hmm. So I just like reflected one day. I was like, damn, like every single opportunity that I've got from my network, it's been a referral from someone that I worked with before. Like, it wasn't that organization, it wasn't even my Pepperdine network and stuff. It's been the people that I actually have like been in the trenches with that said, oh, this opportunity came up. Like my old boss, I was in esports like before a couple of years back. My old boss there like hit me up for a position for Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm not moving to Florida right now because all my family is here. And then I had another boss that I worked with that she's at Moderna. That one, like, I was like, man, but the caveat was like, you got to move to Massachusetts, or otherwise you're a contractor. And me, I have a weird thing. I don't trust contracts. So I'm like, nah, I'm good on that. But like, it's just those things, right? Like, it's funny, like you can pay all this money for the network, but at the end of the day, if you have those interpersonal skills, like you said, Chris, from just going to networking events or working with people, like those are the real people that are actually sharing your name for opportunities, or thinking about you when those opportunities come up when they move on somewhere else.
Yeah, you don't have to pay a middleman to get a network.
Exactly.
All right. Like, I mean, and that's really what school, that's the sell now, right? You're paying for a network. Pay me, I'm gonna put all y'all together, all y'all pay, and then now go be great together. No, you don't have to do that. Right. And it is, we do have this conversation a lot. We always bring up school. Chris usually ignites it because he's so passionate about it. Right. Like, I'm curious to see when my boys, let's call it my baby boy, right? He's 3, gets to college age, what it's going to look like.
Man, right?
It won't look like college right now. I'll tell you that. It won't look like it at all.
Yeah, man. College. I'm so angry at college because it's crazy, right? It's valuable in a way, right? Because you got to have that, especially for us, right? Being black.
You almost got to have you feel like you got to have a piece of paper.
You
right?
You got to at least have a BA if you black, right? To even compete in this, because even if we got more skill level, like that's just the nature. That's the game. But so the BA thing, right? I feel like you can get away with, if you go to like a local school that has like different incentive programs where you can come out not owing anything or just very little. I think that's the route to go to. And I mean, I used to be like, nah, I ain't going to community colleges, but man, to get 2 years free and you can like go to another university 2 years, man, it's a lot to think about. College is like, it's a big business, man. That's the biggest.
That's a whole nother podcast episode. We're gonna invite you back, Pat.
That definitely is a whole nother conversation. And you know, I could go there It's a whole business, and most of it's a scam. The
Man.
product they're selling is not
Yep.
the product that actually, right, that you actually want, right? Like
Exactly.
they're telling you get this thing because it's gonna lead you to this, and they're lying to you. That's not the case. So yeah, we can go there for days. We can go there for days.
I got one more esports, right, and wrap it up because you mentioned it. Sorry, I just have to. I've asked me and Chris knows I kind of got geek out on this VR.
Oh man,
right in that space. So Chris, what was you were like 10 years out?
Yeah, no, we got 15 years.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you were
like
plus 15, you were plus 10.
Yeah.
I was sub 10, and that was 2 years ago. So let's call it the next 8 years, Pat. You're in the world more than me and Chris is. Where are we at with that? This is gonna kind of help grow a debate that we have going.
Because again, it's the education part, right? People don't understand VR.
That's it.
And they mix up VR with AR. Like it's some powerful stuff that's developing that people don't know about. I think that we probably another good decade.
See, there we go, baby.
Hey, Pat, man, I set it up. I set it up where you can easily come on my side with it, right? So you're saying adoption, like not total adoption, but like general adoption is still 10 plus out.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, because it's been here for so long, but I don't. It's the education.
Again, you don't know.
I think it's going to exponentially click. That's my bet.
You don't know anyone right now that spends an hour in VR a day. Right. You don't know anyone.
A day.
Anybody.
I may have a couple, but again, I like the space. Right. So that's
you're in the geek world, right?
All right, I like the space.
General population, people aren't there. And it takes so long to educate. Like, there's still people that don't put their credit card information on the internet. There's still people that do.
But those aren't the people that's going to be doing VR anyway.
I'm just saying, look at how long it takes to adapt. Change is tough. It takes a while.
Sorry, Pat. I just suckered you into a debate me and Chris have had since 18 on this podcast.
So this is crazy. So it's funny. I think it's 10, but it could be quicker. And I'll say this. So next VR, right, is they're out in Orange County, and it was a former client of mine. They basically like had this cool tool where like you can watch the games in VR. So you can watch Steph Curry and LeBron in VR.
Yeah. I've done it before at the All-Star.
Yeah, and it's like you're in the arena, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So they actually just got acquired by Apple last year. It happened like right. Actually, I think March. I always get the dates mixed up, but I know like either March 14th or March 16th or March 17th was like when the pandemic just went full force last year. But it happened right there, so nobody really like picked up the news on it that much. But Apple purchased XVR last year, right during the pandemic started. So I think that's the only kind of.
Maybe it could because Apple did.
Because Apple picked it up.
These companies are too smart, right? Like they'll sit on it. They'll sit on it for 5-6 years. I'm telling you, before they release it. Like we are definitely a decade out from like.
My bet is still sub 10, so I got 8 more years from when we started the conversation, right? So let's mark it down
20,
from
30,
this podcast,
30.
Right? We're on episode like 300 or whatever. I'll be like, I told you so.
We'll be doing the episode in VR.
I know, right? That's what I'm talking about.
That's it. But listen, we'll wrap it up, man. We've been chopping it up with you, Pat, and we appreciate your insight and what you've been the perspective you've been able to bring to the podcast. Tell people where they can find you if you want to shout out social or wherever you're at, because people probably want to stay in touch with you.
Yep. So I would say at Media Dean, that's all of my handles on social media. So at Media Dean for Twitter, Instagram, and then at Facebook. For some reason, I don't come up. I don't know why, but yeah, it's just Pat Dean on Facebook.
Gotcha.
There we go. And we'll have it in the show notes for sure.
And then LinkedIn is just it's just Patrick Hodgson, HODGSON. So
perfect.
That's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it, man. We'll definitely link it up in the show notes so people can find you. and reach out. And we definitely got to have you back on, man, have another conversation, go down this marketing space a bit more. As you are really into the esport, like definitely, I think coming back on and having a conversation about what's happening in the trenches on that side, the challenges and things that you're seeing, I think that'll just be helpful for our community and the people listening.
Yeah, it's a lot there that I wish I could say right now. Obviously I can't because I ain't there yet, but it's some good stuff coming.
Well, we'll bring you back, and maybe what we'll do with maybe this idea, maybe we have like a panel of parents that are like on the fence, right? We have enough around, and then have people like you come on just to have the conversation, right? About like what that could look and feel like. Cause I'm all sold. Chris is kind of sold. So we're easy, right? Like, but we can have some other parents that maybe can come on and continue this conversation, because they'll have different questions that we've already processed and we're already finished with, but can be there for that.
It's a good one, and it's one that I think would be good feedback for me too. Is like I work with my new teammates to create like the right messaging to ease those concerns that they may have.
There we go. See, look, we help each other. That's how this thing works. This is the networking, right? Look, we just did it for free on Zoom. I think we paid a little bit for it, right, Chris? Some, right?
Just a little, but nothing worth the value that's coming from this thing. So
there you go.
So again, guys, we're gonna sign off of this episode of the Perspective Podcast until next week. T, say goodbye to the people.
Oh, here we go. Big bang.
There it is.
That's my thing. Bang, bang.
Bang,
Pat, man, I appreciate you, man, so much for coming on, dropping so many, jewels for us, man. We really appreciate you for sure.
I appreciate you, T. Appreciate you, Chris. This was fun. Definitely got to do it again.
Absolutely, guys. Signing off until next week. Take care. God bless.